Folks, nobody expects this. I'll explain what I mean and then get into the latest home prices and insights for the Peel and Durham region for week ending February 18th, 2026. If you want to speak directly with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. When I first start working with buyers, up front, before we get started, I go out of my way and I do everything I can to help them understand what to expect from the buying process. But buyers are often surprised. As we get into it and as we put an offer on a property, buyers are surprised that sellers are turning their offers down. Most buyers go out there with the attitude of every seller is a desperate seller. After all, we all know this is a down market. It's been a down market for years. Why would a seller be selling in this market? And so buyers generally have that mentality. And no matter what I explain and I try to prepare them for what to expect, they have their own thoughts. They have their own preconceived notions of what to expect out of this market. And so we'll put in an offer on a property. And sellers are often in two categories. There's the seller that would like to accept that offer, but they can't. They just can't accept it because of their own financial situation. It could be a home that was recently purchased and now they're trying to sell, and they just can't, even if they wanted to, take the number that that buyer is offering. And then there's the other type of seller who could. They could take that number and move on. They're just not willing to sell at that price point. Because we work with sellers and buyers, we see both sides of this. When we're working with buyers, we go see many properties. We may put an offer on one of them. But because my name is now attached to all these other properties that we've seen, I get the updates on my cell phone each time one of these other properties receives an offer. My phone rings all day long with an offer on this property, an offer on that property. We see the offers. We see the fact that there's many buyers out there trying to buy. But these offers are not being accepted. The properties are still sitting out there. Sure, we could have a whole other element of discussion about, well, the sellers are being unreasonable. And if we're going to open up that door, well, then we got to open up the other door that the buyers may also be being unreasonable. So let's not go there in this discussion. But not every seller is a desperate seller. If those sellers could accept the numbers coming in, some are just not willing to. But if more of these transactions were being put together because we see the offers coming in, we would be doing more sales. I'm sharing this with you because unless you're active in the field, you're actively either selling or buying, this is not a perspective you're going to know even exists. But this is the reality. I can share this with you because I'm active working with buyers and sellers every day. It's a part of the market that observers on the outside looking in don't really see or understand. There are lots of offers being thrown out there. Few are being accepted. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. And if you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, Peel and Durham. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on detached properties only, and more specifically for Mississauga, for Brampton, and for Durham, we're dealing with Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as our Durham sample. And when we look at average sold price for 3 months, Mississauga is always way up top here. Brampton and Durham, they're usually week in and week out pretty similar in average sold price. And compared to where average sold price is for Mississauga for this week ending February 18th, there's a $247,000 difference in average sold price. I'm pointing that out because if your thought is, I could buy in Durham, or I could buy in Mississauga, or I could buy in Brampton, or I can buy in Mississauga, you're not buying the same house for the same money. It is a almost $250,000 difference in average sold price. For week ending February 18th, we're starting off with Mississauga detached properties. 27 were sold. Three sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price is $1,298,000. And if we look at the new year here, it's kind of a little bit difficult to figure out which way our price is trending. Sales are up and down. It's 27 this week. It was 39 the previous week. 39 also saw 7 properties selling at $2 million or more. We're seeing 16, 23, and we're seeing peaks and valleys of prices. I kind of think so far, average price for Mississauga for detached properties out of the gate for 2026 is still pretty flat. But when we look at where we are now compared to, we're going back 12 months now, we're far lower than where average sold prices have been before. Compared to last year, $1,298,000 is 12% lower. And I've gone back a few weeks here circling the difference in percentages versus the previous year. And there's kind of a theme going. 11, 12, 13% on average lower than the previous year. The median price of $1,220,000 is 10% lower. 27 were sold. 2 of those, so 7%, but only 2 sold at list price or more. We peaked so far this year at 88 listings in 1 week, and for 2 weeks in a row now, we're seeing fewer listings of detached properties. I know the weather has something to do with that. Absolutely it does. If you think that our real estate market is not weather dependent, guess again. When it's cold, frigid, cold the way we've seen, sellers thinking, well, why do I want to go on the market now? Who's going to come and look at my house? Let's wait. And so we see fewer listings. Active listings is climbing slowly. We're now at 531 active, physically on the market, available for sale detached properties in Mississauga. And months of inventory, 4.5, pretty much a balanced market. Brampton sales into the new year now looks like they're creeping up every single week. 39 detached properties were sold for week ending February 18th. 2 of those sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price is $1,037,000. Now, if we look at just these few weeks into the new year, we're kind of hovering. It seems, I would say, sales average prices are kind of flat. We're currently at $1,037,000. And if we go back, well, far lower than where we were at the beginning of the year. $1,037,000 is 14% lower than the same week a year ago. And also, if I look at the difference in year over year, going back a few weeks just for this year, 12%, 10, 13, 13, 16, 14, 12, 13, 14% difference in average sold price so far seems to be the norm this year. The median price of $1,035,000 is 7% lower. 39 were sold. 4 of those, so 10% basically, sold at list price or more. Listings jumped up a little bit to 127. 813 are available for sale. Active listings really isn't changing that much so far for this year. When we look at the active listings, 4.8% of available detached properties in Brampton actually sold. And months of inventory down a bit to 4.8 months of inventory, which is at the top end of a balanced market. Here's Durham. I remind you, Durham, we're looking at Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as our Durham sample. 32 detached properties were sold. And that's kind of normal for the last few weeks. No property sold at $2 million or more. And when I look at this chart, I'm kind of thinking that prices are maybe creeping up a little bit, but I can't say 100% for sure. But still, where we are now, $1,065,000, is kind of not so far off. It's much lower than we were February, March the previous year, but pretty similar from the springtime onward, not that far off. $1,065,000 is 6% lower than the same week a year ago. The median price of $1,120,000 is actually 2% higher. 32 were sold. 15 of those, so 47%, almost half, sold at list price or more. Durham, specifically Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby for detached properties, is a little bit more competitive than other parts of the GTA. We're seeing listings jump up a little bit to 80. Active listings is climbing, and 8.6% of the available detached properties actually sold. That's one of the highest percentages of property selling anywhere in the GTA. Months of inventory sitting at 2.7, which is the top end of a seller's market. And when we look at months of inventory for the areas that we're talking about today, pretty much a balanced market, although Ajax, Pickering, Whitby, a little bit more aggressive. You're going to get, depending on property type, neighborhood, price point, it's either going to be a bit of a balanced market or a little bit more of a seller's type of market. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.